breaking news out of a military housing community in San Diego. Multiple people are confirmed dead after a small private business jet trying to land at a nearby airport crashed into this neighborhood, setting several homes and parked cars that you see on your screen on fire, sending neighbors scrambling. It's unclear right now how many people were on board the jet, but the assistant fire chief says that all the fatalities appear to be from the plane. Officials say the impact left a devastating trail of destruction and toxic streams of jet fuel pouring down the streets, soaking front lawns. The assistant fire chief saying there is fuel all over the place.
The FAA says the Cessna 550 went down just before 4 a.m. local time in the Murphy Canyon neighborhood. It was just miles from landing at the Montgomery Gibbs Executive Airport. This was a flight that took off from New Jersey's Teterboro Airport Wednesday night, and officials say it ran into foggy weather in San Diego. Listen to how first responders described the scene to emergency dispatch.
We are reconfiguring this. Units en route to the Salmon Street explosion, our flames, our aircraft overturned and then an explosion happened in the backyard. The house is on fire. Engine 39 had seen multiple vehicles, multiple structures on fire. Engine 39 on a hydrant, attacking the fire engine 39 sample.
We got multiple explosions over here. We're doing evacuation. We got multiple houses on fire.
We're going to probably have several hundred people evacuated. We just don't have a place set up yet for them to go.
At least half a block south of our impact scene is going to be the street and yards. Front yards are completely saturated with fuel. Needs extreme caution doing evacs in those yards.
Let's go to CNN aviation correspondent Pete Muntean, who is at the Magic Wall for us. Pete, explain what happened here and what you can tell us about the type of plane that was involved.
The big takeaway right now, Brianna, is this could have been so much worse, and the NTSB will arrive on the scene today. They really have their work cut out for them as they try and find the voice recorder and the flight data recorder from this airplane. It's called a Citation 2, a relatively forgiving business jet. It has a straight wing, makes it very easy to fly. Seats between 6, 8, or 10 people, depending on the configuration. We know the plane went down in this neighborhood, and you can see the aftermath here. Primarily charred cars on the street there that were parked on the shoulder. This community primarily enlisted in the Navy from the nearby Navy bases. We know that the weather at the time of this crash was particularly tricky. The cloud ceiling very low, the visibility about 2 miles and mist. So the pilots would have had a difficult time getting in to Montgomery Field there in San Diego. That is something investigators will want to look at. That is key. They'll also be looking at the history of this flight. We know this flight took off from Teterboro, New Jersey, late last night, late Wednesday night, about 11 p.m. Flew about a 3-hour, 42-minute leg here to this airport near Wichita, Kansas. Spent about 45 minutes on the ground there, and then continued on to Montgomery Field, where it was set to arrive around 3:45 a.m. local time. Obviously, this plane did not make it. We know that the tower was not open at the time of this crash, meaning that that tower flips into what's called a common traffic advisory frequency. The pilot radioed that he was on a 3-mile straight in to runway 28 there. Montgomery Field. It's 28 left and right. They're parallel runways. I've flown in and out of this airport, but apparently did not make it. That was the last fateful radio transmission. What's really key now is what we're able to glean early on from the flight data from flight tracking sites like Flight Radar 24, FlightAware, and ADS-B Exchange. We know that this was the last recorded position of the flight. This is Murphy Canyon here. You can see the streets and the neighborhoods. We also know there were high tension wires in this area, and there's a bit of a hilltop here. We know that at this point, the plane was recorded at about 500 feet, according to the data from ADS-B Exchange. This is 3 miles as the crow flies between the threshold of the runway here at Montgomery Airport and the crash site. If you go back and interpolate this data and look at the what is supposed to be the approach path if this pilot was flying what's called the ILS, the radio beam that descends you down to the runway in poor weather, the elevation that the airplane should have been at here was 1,380 feet. So we're talking a difference of more than 800 feet, and that is a pretty big discrepancy. And this will be something that is key. Why was this airplane so low on the approach? as they were coming into land at Montgomery Field. That is something that investigators will really want to know. Were they doing something called ducking under? That's something that a trap that pilots fall into when the cloud ceiling is low, when they're trying to make it in, when the weather is poor, and make contact with the ground, be able to see the approach lights and the features around the airport so then they can continue on the approach. Some really, really big questions here, and now investigators will really focus in on the environment, the airplane, and the pilots. We still do not know how many people were on board this business jet. Could have been so much worse.
Pete Montaigne, thank you so much for breaking that down for us. Let's actually take you now live to the scene of the crash. That's where CNN's Stephanie Elam just arrived. Stephanie, walk us through what you're seeing.
It's unbelievable. It's actually unfathomable, Boris, that no one outside of the plane lost their lives. Take a look behind me here at this house, at this car. Remember that this happened in the middle of the night, on a school night, right? So you have people who would be in their homes sleeping, and you look at this devastation. I walked down to the other side of this street because it does run down a hill, and you could just see the cars are burned out on either side of the street. There's just glass blown out. I saw a piece of a car that had kind of melted off the back right corner because it would appear that something fell as this plane was coming down and burned off the back corner of that car. It's pretty contained to this area of the street, going down the street here and then running down into the road. We heard earlier in that press conference that they said jet fuel was running down the street, which could have been part of what caused this. But this is a densely built community here in San Diego. And right now we have very clear skies, but I can tell you driving down here from Los Angeles, there was a lot of fog and parts of it coming down here to get here. Now that it's warming up, it's starting to clear out in a lot of this area. But you look at that devastation behind us. You look at how that house is impacted, those cars, and it's really, really unbelievable that no one on the ground lost their lives, even though we know that people who were on their plane did here. People are coming out to see this in the neighborhood. A lot of military people here, as you've heard, coming out to see this. But this devastation is remarkable that no more people on the ground lost their lives, Boris.
Yeah, and we saw, Stephanie, people in video evacuating, carrying small children with them. This is a community where there are families as well. Stephanie, we know you just got on scene. You're going to continue to do some reporting there. Let's bring in CNN safety analyst and former FAA safety inspector David Susi. David, you hear Stephanie describing what she's seeing, and it just being almost unbelievable that the deaths in this case are confined to the airplane. What do you think as you're learning about this?
It's incredible again that happened. It obviously took some skill on the pilot's part to make sure that they weren't landing directly on an airplane. I've investigated a couple of accidents in residential areas where the pilot doesn't take that maneuver and ends up landing on buildings and on cars. So that's really a measure from the pilot that took that extra care to make sure that he was landing on an area where there would not be significant damage directly to a specific building. So that's what I would look at first. The second thing that, as Pete mentioned, is the flight control or the flight data recorders and see what's going on there. But one of my biggest concerns is that this airplane, specifically this Citation, is one of the most reliable airplanes. I had the opportunity, the pleasure of working on these airplanes. They're very docile as far as corporate jets go. They're easy to fly. Their landing speed is low. It's a very great aircraft for using for corporate measures. But at this point, again, we don't know what happened. And then the last thing, I'm sorry to go run on so long, but is the fact that the range of this aircraft is about 2,000 miles. So if it took off from New Jersey and was headed to California, it was on the end of its range. Although because there's jet fuel on the ground, I think it still had fuel aboard. We'll have to wait to see what we find out.
That is a significant point. I wonder what you make of reports that there were significant fog and that visibility may have been an issue. How complex is it to make a landing in those conditions?
Well, it's very complex, and this aircraft specifically can be certified for single pilot. So if it was a single pilot airplane and there was only one pilot in charge, it can be a large workload to try to come into a foggy area like that and find a way around it. So it could possibly be that they were flying under the ILS to try to get visibility to see where the airport was and get visible recognition of the airport at that location. So I would suspect that the fact that it was that low would have indicated either a fuel starvation, which I don't think is the case here because they did make a smooth descent, but I would be looking at that as well.
And we understand there are multiple fatalities, but we don't know how many. Is that unusual, David?
It really is, but looking at the extent of the damage to the aircraft, I've done several aircraft corporate jet accidents like this, and it is really difficult considering the level of damage. I don't want to get too morose about it, but to actually identify how many people are on the aircraft. So that may take a little while considering the damage to the airplane.
David Susi, appreciate having your perspective and expertise on.